narrowly avoided being murdered. This is a story of someone I knew and had cut ties with because he was a fucking psycho. The first half will be to add context as to why I cut him off, and the second half is what makes it a let's not meet. I don't know if he uses Reddit, so I'll omit ages and locations. It started about 4 years ago when I was living in a friend's house while attending a nearby university. It was myself, my friend, his sister, and their parents. Roughly about 2 weeks into staying there, my friend's sister invited her boyfriend to live in the house too, and by all accounts he was a pretty cool guy at first. Very sociable and full of great stories. We often sat around the table for drinks or talked about life, having a smoke in the garden. Within the first month, however, as he started to get comfortable, cracks started to show in this veneer. He would rant about government conspiracy, how he was always a wrong party, he was big into Sigma male bullshit and martial arts, and Christ did he have a temper. He had this big dog he always kept in a cage that was extremely violent when he wasn't around. The dog attacked his girlfriend and had to be put down. That's when the guilt trips towards her began and the ranting became incessant. About 2 months later, he had the bright idea to live in a shipping container and dragged his girlfriend along for the ride. I'm not talking about one of those cheeky little restoration jobs. This was a rented container in a storage yard among the outskirts of the town we were living in. He would intimidate and threaten the staff there constantly until they called the police. This, of course, was another conspiracy. He became increasingly abusive to his girlfriend to the point where the family got involved to get her out of there. I stuck close to them, having pretend to be on his side until we could safely get her out. They broke up, which he blamed me for, claiming I was poisoning her against him to make her mine. She has a new partner now and they are happy. We all blocked the psycho ex on everything possible, but he continued to harass them until eventually he disappeared, or so we thought. Fast forward to last year, I started to receive messages over social media from several different accounts, blocking each one in turn when I discovered who it was. Some friendly and some hostile. One of these profiles, however, was pretending to be someone I knew from university. We talked about life and how things were going. Eventually, I was invited to a house party, claiming it was a free house and plenty of people were coming. I booked the time off work, made my travel plans, and kept talking to this friend coming up to the date of the party. I mentioned it to my friend's sister and she was interested in going herself. Until I mentioned the address and she panicked. The address in question was a property belonging to the crazy ex's father that was scheduled for sale. I waited until the day of the party and called the police to check the property, claiming a suspected break-in. They found 5 people there, including the ex. Parked out the front was a butcher's van equipped for food storage and a collection of knives, hammers, and rope. I'm glad I didn't go. My grandfather's intruder. Hello. As the title states, this story came from my grandfather. Recently, I went to see him. I had not seen him since he decided to stay out of state, but that is not important. We ended up getting into a conversation about break-ins. So, let me get into the story that he told me. Now, at this time, my grandfather was with his wife and my uncle. It started out with some knocks on the front door. Being woken up, it was disregarded. However, there came pounding on the back door. To give a little context into the home at the time, there are 2 sets of stairs, both leading to the back door. My uncle was downstairs and ran up while hearing this. He had made it in time, because as soon as he was up the stairs, a man bursts in. The police were being called while he was yelled at to get out. According to my grandpa, the man starts yelling back, asking why they were there. There was more yelling, and soon enough the man and my grandfather get into a fight. My uncle and grandfather were able to get him outside again. The police then show up and the man was arrested. It turns out that the man was drunk and thought it was his house he got into. My grandfather realized that he lived up the street from them. It gave an explanation as to why he was just yelling at them for being in their house. My grandfather never found out what had happened to him after that. Trying doors. I lived in an apartment complex not far from a downtown area back in the early 2010s. I came home one night around 2:30 a.m. and was lying in bed when I heard footsteps crunching in the pebbles outside my window. It wasn't unusual to hear that because my apartment was next to the detached laundry room, and lots of people who worked odd hours lived in the building. I had my eyes closed when I heard the distinct sound of the back door handle being turned. I look up, and the handle is turning back forth, and I just lay there paralyzed with fear until it finally stops. Then I heard footsteps sliding across the porch and into the gravel again. I went to where my phone was charging and called 911. Half an hour later, a cop is at my door saying they found someone suspicious near the building, and he asked if I'd gotten a look at the person I called about. Since I hadn't, he just took my information and left. A couple of days later, I ran into a neighbor at the mailboxes, and I mentioned what had happened. She was a bartender downtown and said she knew all about it because it was a drunk customer who had followed her home and was trying doors all over the building to find her. When the police found him, he had a knife on him. I'm glad our doors were locked that night.